heavens. Those that have been forgiven most will love him the most. Okay? It's beyond our capacity to understand. I mean, it's hard to think of somebody that's so vile, the most vile person you can imagine. Maybe it's a child molester. And I don't understand that. I mean, a lot of child molesters have probably been killed when they've been caught red-handed by a parent or something. I mean, and law enforcement, they just, oh, well, what are we going to do? It's like this guy getting attacked in court recently, this doctor, right? That and the dad. I mean, I can see that. It makes you nuts, okay? I had a very personal experience that hit far too close to home for me. And, I know a little guy can tear a big guy limb from limb, okay, when it's about his wife or his children, okay? And they're one and the same because the wife gives you the children, and so there's a very inextricable connection between a mother and a child. You'll do the same things for your children that you do for your wife, and, for your wife that you do for your children. And that means sometimes that you'll, kick butt, for lack of a better term. And, that might just be like what Moses did when he was outraged, he was incensed, he was infuriated and had temporary insanity, and he killed the slave driver that was beating his slave. Made him nuts. And today, I mean, this is a beautiful thing about Jews. This is something they hold dear, that, Moses is their guy that gave them the 10 Commandments and everything. And so it's kind of beautiful, beautiful thing. I like the Jews I've met in my life. And, you could stereotype any group of people, but people are, we're all the same and we're all different too. I mean, it's just like Muslims. It's just like Christians. It's a lot of Christians, I think, are on the highway to hell. And it's going to be just like Jesus said. He said, you're calling on me now, but, your heart is far from me. Like, even it goes back to Isaiah. We're going back thousands of years. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. God holds us accountable individually. Okay. It's not like he says, okay, they're Jews. Well, okay, I'm going to judge them differently than the Muslims or the Christians or the Buddhists. I mean, no, God's not stupid. If there's one thing God isn't, and that's stupid. Okay. So, the point is that God is able to forgive anyone, but he's able to not forgive anyone. I mean, I can't imagine the stuff that people would do for free. You could not hand me the world on a silver platter. I wouldn't do it. Harm a child. I mean, could you imagine being a child molester, scaring a child, psychologically damaging a child, and living with that, especially knowing what Jesus taught about this? Better to not have been born. Okay, you hurt one of these little ones that loves him. I mean, children, I mean, out of the mouths of babes and sucklings is the wisdom. I mean, the children, unless you be like a little child, you shall never enter the kingdom of heaven. The innocence and purity of a child before they're corrupted by sin, the sin that, humans are walking around with. They don't understand it when they're so little, and then they come of age, and then they start understanding, and everything is corrupted when sexuality is supposed to be a pure thing. Look at how we're all screwed up. I mean, you show me one person on earth that ever lived besides Jesus that was not hung up sexually. Okay, and I'll show you a liar. Okay, we all have had issues. If we don't have issues now, if we feel like we've overcome and that's it, we're not looking back, we're done. We're done with, some sexual improprieties or whatever. That's great. That's wonderful. We feel free. And, and I believe that God has the power to keep us from falling. I do believe that. I have to believe that. I have to believe there's hope for everybody. But the point is that I don't care who it is. They know what it means to have issues. And these sexual issues, I mean, we put them up high on, wow, this really bugs me. I feel this sense of separation, or I feel this vapid, empty feeling when I engage in this, and I feel weak and it's unbecoming. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. Why do I keep doing it? And this is part of the way we're created. I mean, it's when people ask a believer to explain to them, look, why, if there's a loving God that's all powerful, why does God let all these bad things happen? Why does he, if you always want to be strong, why does he let you be weak? Why doesn't he just, why aren't you strong all the time? Or why does he let this bad thing happen or that bad thing happen? Diseases and death. I mean, look at what I've been going through in the last 3 or 4 days. Going through hell, stomach cramps. I mean, I think I might have had, mild appendicitis or something. And, if you read up on it, they'll tell, oh, get to the doctor immediately if it explodes. But I tell you, you can use prayer, you can fast and stuff like that. But, I was having some sleepless nights. I was having a hell of a hard time. I thought I was dying. But that's a disease. Anytime you get the flu or anything else, a cold, it's a disease. But God's letting these things happen because in our weakness, His strength is perfected. We are needy creatures, and it doesn't help to not admit that. All these natural disasters in the world, okay, you name one after another, God lets them happen, okay? He lets the punishing heat. He lets the punishing cold. He lets the all kinds of bad things happen, okay? That's just a matter of fact. And so an agnostic or an atheist could say, well, if your God's so loving and kind and powerful, why is he such an a-hole at the same time? Good question. It's healthy skepticism. So a believer has to be ready to give them some answers. Okay, and the only answer I have is the fall of man. This happened right at the beginning. So you go back to the beginning, and this metaphor for this forbidden fruit of this knowledge of good and evil that we ate from this tree of knowledge of good and evil. Okay, and what happened? This subsequent curse upon the earth, when there was thorns on a rose, and man's earning his bread was made far more difficult, and a woman's childbearing pains were far worse after this. So we know what's going on here. Okay, and we need to explain that to unbelievers, because if we don't, we're failing them, because they have a good question, a very valid question. If this God is so all powerful, then why do things seem so haphazard? Why so helter skelter in the world? Why doesn't God take control? And it comes down to free will. I mean, He cannot take that from us, or else we are no longer made in His image and likeness. So when we serve Him, it's got to be because we love Him. We're doing it because we damn well want to. We do not want to be sinful, but we know we are. We know we need Him. We need to turn to Him. This is why it says His strength is perfected in our weaknesses. That all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to His purposes in Christ Jesus. Okay, that's why these things are written. We've got to get it. So when, the idea of forgiveness, I mean, one of these women that was molested by this doctor, I mean, these 150, 250, I can't even, the mind reels. Okay, but he harmed all these women psychologically, and he, by being physically abusive to them and corrupting them. He was a cucker. That's what these guys are. They want to defile women. I mean, for their own sick. They've got no constraints. I mean, well, a lot of guys say, well, I don't have much constraint. Hey, but there's a lot of things that you wouldn't do for money. I mean, not all the money in the world. Nothing. You could be the king of the earth and have control over everyone and everything, and you wouldn't do that. And that's what tells you there's something very wrong with somebody's brain, where the devil is in the details. Satan is in there controlling these people. He's a pervert. He's a liar. He's a deceiver. He's a cheater. And he is a murderer. That is the spirit of Satan. That's the spirit of this world. And that same spirit is in control today. And I'm not saying that's Trump, okay? That is a spirit of evil that's going to fight any attempt at humanity extricating themselves from the maws of what is trying to consume us. Okay, it's like a snake has wrapped itself around humanity, and it just keep on strangling us by eating its tail. But we all know it can't go on forever. But it's going to kill us in the meantime. It'll kill as many of us as it can, but like a pyramid scheme. I mean, who comes out on top? Whoever started the pyramid scheme. So this pyramid scheme was started by Satan. And his hopes is that he's the last man standing. He doesn't care if there's any humans alive. They're all going to hell. If they didn't understand what Christ meant, well, many are going to call him in that day. And Jesus is going to say, away from me. I never knew you. This is the risk of somebody that doesn't fundamentally admit and that money, it's that simple. That money is the driver, okay, the causer that the influence of the power of money, the things it will give you, the temporal pleasures, and the materialism, just the power, the control, the freedom, the security, which is another way to say you're out of fear. You understand? It's a way out of fear. Money is a way out of fear. And who doesn't want to be out of fear? So you cannot say it's not tremendously alluring. Okay, it is. And, that's it. You've got to admit it. You've got to say, look, if God says that this is the way it's going to have to be, you're going to have to wean yourselves off the money. And he gave us the intelligence to figure out how that could be accomplished, carried out, okay? Then you've got to admit it. You've got to call a spade a spade. You've got to be ready for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you're not, then you're not ready. You're going to be one of those people that on the judgment day, the day of reckoning, the return of the Lord, whatever you want to call it, it's going to happen at the hand of God on his time. But you sure as hell don't want to be stuck there saying, look, God, you know what? I tried to, figure out how I could make this money thing work. And, I thought bubbles were good. And, I didn't understand that, bubbles are always bad. And, the people want stability. They want slow, gradual improvement. They want progress socially, politically, and economically speaking. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they call themselves liberals or conservatives or socialists or capitalists or Democrats or Republicans or anything else. Okay? People basically want the same things. Don't we all want a sense of security out of fear? Don't we all want a sense of freedom? Okay? Don't we all want a sense of prosperity? Don't we all want those good things? Who could say they don't? You're a liar, and you've got to admit it. And so those things that you want for yourself and your family, it's very simple. You have to be. You have to be. Why do I say have to? You have to be if you want salvation, if you want to expect and feel deserving of, feel worthy of going to a better realm, a better world, then you have to admit that. And you've got to be willing that other people have the same things that you want for yourself and your children. What is it? Okay? What are those things in a nutshell? Do you understand? So if it meant we had to ration out, if there was only X amount of houses and we just couldn't build any more houses, then you better figure out how you're going to, set all the captives free in a very fair way, right? We don't have to ration. I don't care. This guy wants to live in a palace, a castle. He wants a mansion. I don't really care, because I know the vast majority of people around the world would be happy with very little. This is what is so unnerving to me, that people are willing to just let people die out in the cold, and they just don't look. They bury their heads in the sand. They prescribe to an ignorance is bliss philosophy, and they say, hey, you know what? Not my problem. Okay, I got my family loves me, and my peers love me, and I'm a contributing member of society. I'm doing something very important to society. And so people rationalize to their own destruction. That's it. You cannot live for just the things of this world. And the hard part is explaining this to young people that are, hey, I just got my college degree. I got my numbers are good. I got a good job, a sense of security. I'm out of fear, and I've got this sense of freedom, financial freedom. I do what I want. I can, I'm fine. Just do what I did. If you want to succeed, so just conform, comply, go along with the system, buy in. Get an education, pay, and if you're too damn stupid to do good and to pass college, and then I'm sorry. That's you're weak. Then you deserve to die, or you deserve to be unsuccessful and just take a menial job and. I don't know what to tell you. You'll have to go on welfare, and I don't know. Welfare's running out of money, and they can't. Why else would we have so many homeless people when we're spending $50 billion a year to pay for people that can't afford to pay for their own housing costs? You understand? And the problem's just getting worse. It's just the problems are getting worse. No, it's not Trump's fault. It's inertia. It's momentum that's been going for a long time. A long time. Remember, 1962 was the last time there was probably hope for this country before the assassination of JFK in 1963. So we're in it deep. We've stepped in it deep, man. The poo is up to our nostrils now. Okay, and Trump, okay, as far as I'm concerned, he has not stopped the train yet. And the evidence that Trump has stopped this train, this runaway train of tyranny and oppression, wealth disparity, and ever exploding poverty, is that your cost of living suddenly comes to a standstill. And then he's got to get it on another track. Okay, so he stops the train, and that's the evidence that he stopped the train, is that your cost of living stops in its tracks and begins going down. And yes, I'm talking about the cost for services, the cost for labor. Yes, that's right. So the solution definitely is not that we're just going to, make minimum wage equivalent to what it was in 1962 in terms of the buying power. It's never going to happen, folks. Do the research. Do you know it would have to be over $40 an hour on average? If you live in a city like San Francisco or New York, it'd have to be over $70 an hour. And that is not hyperbolic. That is not exaggerated.